the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Tax day. That's right, pushed off a little bit. Got an extra little over a month to get the whole tax situation all put into place. Tax the rich day. One of those things, again, my whole life divided on are taxes good or taxes bad. I think taxes are the price of admission. You want to live in this country, we want to live in a place that has roads and bridges and schools and police departments and fire departments and a military that we use way too much. If that's your goal, you got to pay taxes. If you want to live on a dirt lot where every time you go off of your dirt lot, you're reaching into your pocket, then don't have a tax base. It seems that simple. Now, interesting, I had this weird conversation today, and it got my mind going back into this division of where we are. Because someone brought up to me, they go, well, we pay way too much taxes. We're taxed higher than anyone in the history of the world. And I had to stop for a second, and I asked, are you serious? Is that something you believe? And this person clearly had bought the Tea Party ideal of, hey, we're just taxed beyond recognition. There's no possible way that we could possibly ever pay higher taxes. And I said, the reality is our grandparents' generation paid considerably higher taxes at every step of the way. And you go back to the 1950s, top marginal tax rate 92%. But also the guy at the bottom was paying more too. And it went up I think it was like every $2,000 the tax rate went up. So the more that you earned, the more that you paid in taxes. Incrementally went all the way up to 92%. And it got me into this conversation because he says to me, he goes, well, we just see things differently. And I'm going, no, we don't see this differently. This is a fact. This is provable. This is a provable fact. And it got me into this mindset of how is it in this day and age when we carry around with us this instrument that gives us unlimited information. We have never had such ease of information. The Library of Congress is in our pocket as we're walking around. We have access to every bit of human intelligence possible, and yet somehow we choose to pick the dumbest misinformation possible. I'm struggling with it. And this is one of those things where, immediately I go, there it is, 1953, top marginal tax rate, 92%, it's right there. Can't screw that up. And I don't believe it. And, this is one of those things that my whole life has been down this, dealing with the believe people. And, I go back to, and I blame Reagan for a lot of this. The whole Reagan revolution brought us the believe people. No matter what you tell me, I'm not going to believe you because, I believe something different. And we just see things differently. There are no common facts anymore. I have my misinformation and you have yours, and never shall the two ever find reality. And it got me thinking about, how we've gotten to this point of being so divided. I'm someone who I'm an issues person. I want to get things done. I want the best policy we can get to achieve a goal. I believe our government is something that we use as a tool to do the things collectively that individually we cannot do. We can't educate the populace individually and have a coherent, educated populace. We can't, we can't pave the roads and build bridges individually. We could, but there'd be cash boxes all over. We can't do that individually. We do it collectively. And that's where I find myself. And then there's the identity people. This is my identity. And this was clearly this person who identified himself as a conservative. And that's his identity. That's who he is. And nothing can deviate from that belief system. And it's weird because, you talk to folks who put themselves in camps, they have to believe everything. I guess it's part of the oath that they take. I don't know if there's a weird oath to be a conservative. I don't. But we've been seeing this partisan divide for the last several decades, Reagan forward more than anything. And it's on, a bunch of simple issues. Race is one of the main dividers. Immigration, whether we should be involved in international things. You remember back in 2010, the right was losing their mind, apoplectic over the fact that we would give countries foreign aid to help keep their people at home. Just losing their minds. And also, the other big thing that has gone on, do we help the poor? I mean, Reagan forward, it's been all an attack on the welfare queen who's driving around in a Cadillac, drinking Dom Perignon, eating steak. She's doing better than you are. You're paying the bill. And people buy this. And there was never a welfare queen. They never found her. She may have been, hanging out with the guy who lost a small family farm because of the estate tax. But again, it comes back down to this belief. And we've been so easily divided. Divide and conquer wins always. And we've been sliced and diced and pitted and segregated based on race, based on gender, sexual orientation, the fear of others, those people. And the wealth class has done a masterful job of this. The people who have the privilege and the power and want to maintain that privilege and power, they're grasping it with a death grip, because what they're seeing and what their policies have brought us is mass inequality. People are struggling in this country. Things are difficult. And one of the ways they keep us divided is pitting us against one another, because, hey, they might take something that's yours. I mean, this class war capitalism that's been heaped upon us, where we've seen a rise not just in inequality of income, but inequality of opportunity. Our millionaire class has gotten much more exclusive because we've allowed monopoly. They control the levers of power. And they've bought and controlled our media structure that cares more about sensationalism and clickbait than they do about the truth. I mean, again, I go back to, we've never had a moment in history where information is so readily available, and yet we choose to be ignorant, and we choose the most idiotic of misinformation. Now, the weird thing is, over the weekend, I had a listener send me an old study. This is, several years old, talking about privilege and hierarchy. And this is where my mind started going, and how the privileged cling to that power because they don't want to lose it. They've got it. They don't want to lose it. They've got all this wealth that we've given them. Again, we've slashed taxes in enormous ways. We've given massive loopholes so that they can amass fortunes under the guise that they know what to do with it, and it would trickle down. It would come down on us like rivers of gold and honey. And it never does. Their pockets never fill. Their coffers never overflow. Because their greed knows no bounds. And what this research suggested from several years back is that mass inequality, like we're seeing, predictably leads to violence, to racism, to extremism, all the things that we're leading to right now. Because, we're fighting over what's left of the crumbs. We're fighting over the scraps. And we're told, up. That guy's going to take your scrap. You better go get it. And not going, hey, we've got more wealth in this country than in any point in the course of human history. We could eradicate poverty. We could eradicate homelessness. We could do things that we all say we want when other people are listening, but we don't do it. And, I come back to this moment of divide and conquer wins always. If we can pit people against one another, like Jay Gould said, I can easily pay half the working class to murder the other half. And it's what we're seeing. Look at what's playing out in front of us right now. What are Republican governors across the country doing? They're saying, oh, we got to cut that unemployment because those working people have got it too easy and they won't take those crummy jobs. No one wants to work. They all want to be lazy. They all want to be on the dole. When the reality is no one wants those crummy jobs. Because if you look at the job numbers, if you look at the income numbers, you look at the facts, people are taking the jobs above those. People are going back to work for a reasonable wage. People are entering the workforce. They're just not taking those, barely minimum wage or above, and in some cases, below minimum wage jobs because of the tipped minimum wage. They're even dividing the low-wage workforce against one another. And it's remarkable that they get away with it. Instead of everyone in the working class, like I do, say, no, if you want those people to come to work for you, you got to pay them better. You got to raise the wages, make better working conditions. And kind of what we're seeing, especially in that lowest rung of the economy, is you're seeing people saying, you know what? I do have a couple of bucks coming in right now that's making my life a little bit easier. It's going to give me choices. And I'm looking for the best option, which is what we want from unemployment. We don't want desperation and poverty. We want options. We want opportunity. And, you've got Republican governors across the country going, no. You go back to working those crummy jobs. You get to it. And what the political class has done is they've bowed to the wealth class, because the wealth class doesn't want to share. They've got a death grip on wealth. A little inequality, not a bad thing, they tell you. Makes people want to work harder. Nonsense. Better wages, better opportunities make people want to work harder. And like I said, what we're seeing is we're seeing people with options. And the employer class doesn't like that. So they're using the political class to force people back into a desperate situation. That's all we're seeing. Because this kind of quote-unquote labor shortage doesn't exist as you go up the ladder. It's just these poor folks. These poor folks who don't want to go back into crappy jobs, who pay them crummy wages with no future and no opportunity. There is a reorganizing of the workforce. And look, here's the interesting part for me. There's part of me that goes, Republicans are actually doing working people a favor on a certain level. Now, hear me out. They create a desperation class of workers who have to go back to these crummy jobs because they got kids to feed, they got bills to pay, and there's no benefit for them. At some point, the hope is especially if Joe Biden gets the PRO Act passed through and we remake labor law in this country, that there's an explosion of union organizing. That working people say, we've had enough. We've gone through the pandemic. We've been called essential and heroes and all kinds of things. And yet we're still struggling to keep food on the table. Our wages have been declining for decades. I was just explaining to someone the other day that, where I come from, the freight industry. When I started back in the late 80s, if you use those little calculators that the Bureau of Labor Statistics puts out on inflation, what I started for back in the late 80s was over $30 an hour in today's dollars. Today they're paying 18. You go, 18's not so bad. Yeah, it's not so bad until you look at the fact that the gas station is paying 15. The wages have not kept up with inflation. The standard of living that people my age and older remember as possible, not there. Because we have had a massive redistribution of wealth from the people who do the actual work to the people who move money from one pocket to the other. And they do that through, again, a bunch of ways. Eliminating your ability to collectively bargain, pushing for laws that make it much harder to organize and to keep unions, and easier for them to replace people and break contracts and do all of the things that they've been able to do, and outsource and bring in cheaper labor. All those things that they've been doing for decades has caused for this stagnation of wealth. Which is, again, why you have so many people who grew up, like I did, believing in that mantra that if you worked hard, you played by the rules, that you would get ahead, that life would get better with hard work. Oddly enough, I still believe that. I still believe that if you get up every day, you go to work, you do your best, that you can get ahead. But again, for me, it comes back down to only if you have a contract, only if you have a union fighting for your better wages. I had a conversation with someone who told me, well, we don't need this. We don't need these contracts. We don't need that. The employer's good to us. And I said, no, the employer is not good to you. They're not benevolent. They didn't give you the things that you came here for. They were negotiated for. And the second that the contract goes away, you lose all of that. And then you're at their will. You're at their whim. And I think we've forgotten that. And for me, the only way that we bring this country back together to some level of sanity is we find economic equality. We find a way to revive that if you do work hard and play by the rules, you get ahead. That life gets better with work. I did agree with Ronald Reagan, who said the best anti-poverty program is a good job. I amend that to saying a good union job. That's what we need to be doing. And that's what I think Biden is doing. I think this infrastructure plan is a huge step in the right direction. A push to reshore our manufacturing and talk about, hey, how do we maintain critical supply chains? Things we absolutely need to do. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. After all, it is tax day. So we're going to come back and talk about, yay, taxes.
American than workers standing up, and the union gives a voice to win. On the Rick Smith Show.